Hello there, Matt with Limbit here, and today I'm going to give you a short demonstration on how you can make ownCloud HA using DRBD and DRBD Reactor. If you're unfamiliar with ownCloud, it is a collaboration tool similar to Google Drive or Dropbox, and you can deploy it on-premise or in the cloud, and it has plenty of integrations that give you that Google Suites-like feel and in a fully open source project. You can check out more about their project at ownCloud.com. But back to the presentation. The demonstration cluster I've set up is comprised of DRBD for your block device replication, the data replication that happens within the cluster. DRBD Reactor, which is the cluster resource manager for the cluster, making sure services are running on some node within the cluster at any given time. And the resources that the DRBD Reactor process manages are the ownCloud file system, so where ownCloud stores all the data that you upload to it. It manages the ownCloud binary, so where that binary is running on within the cluster. And it also manages a virtual IP address, which is what the clients use to connect to the ownCloud instance, making sure that it's always available. Benefits to this approach are generally what you get from shared nothing clustering. So no single component is shared amongst the cluster nodes. That means any component can fail or a full server can fail, and services will be able to move and run on another node within the cluster. You'll also get a simplified cluster stack configuration compared to more robust or more complex cluster resource managers like Pacemaker, which Limbit also supports. You still get those seamless failovers. Clients won't notice that anything has happened. The services will quickly move, and services will be accessible to your clients at all times. You get data integrity guarantees through DRBD's quorum. We're never going to split brain as long as quorum is configured, and we're even if you do find a way to split brain because of the shared nothing nature, it is not a it's not a corruption risk. You're able to choose a node to resync your data from, and yeah, that's again thanks to DRBD's quorum handling. And the full stack is fully open source all the way from the bottom at DRBD, DRBD Reactor up to ownCloud. Yeah, and if, like I said, if any of these services fail, you'll see the services move over to a peer. Clients continue accessing their tools, their storage, their data through ownCloud, and yeah, that's basically the introduction. So now we can just get into how it's configured and maybe showing you a failover or two. Now you're looking at my terminals. I have 3 systems set up here, Limbit 0, 1, and 2. So what I've configured already is a DRBD device named dev DRBD 0, resource name R0, and that's already in sync on all 3 nodes. And I've also installed the DRBD Reactor service and started it and enabled it on all nodes. And that's about it. On one node, I'm going to go ahead and create a file system, and I'm just going to use XFS on that DRBD device, and that's where ownCloud is going to store its data. And then from here, I'm going to, on all nodes, download the OSIS binary, and you can get the most current off of ownCloud's website for whenever you're going through this, or if you're trying this out on your own, but 2.0.0 is the most current in this case. And I'm going to let that download. And with it downloaded on all nodes, I'll make it executable. And from there, we can check the version. We got the same one on all nodes. It's executable. And now I'm going to go ahead on all nodes and make a data directory for OSIS to store its data. We're going to mount the DRBD device at this mount point using DRBD Reactor later in the cluster configuration steps. but we'll take care of that now. And then I'm also going to go ahead and make a directory for OSIS to store its configurations in within Etsy. And I'm going to create a user account that we're going to use to start the OSIS service so that we don't have to use the root account, just for best practices, security reasons. I'll clear that out, just keep things tidy while we're working here. And now to control the OSIS service, the ownCloud service, I'm going to create a systemd unit file. This is also what DRBD Reactor will want to use to start and stop the service. So I'm just going to paste this here, and then I'll kind of talk through what you're looking at. So I've gone ahead and set these environment variables for OSIS to use, and this is all stuff from their user's guide. So if you're wondering what they are, just go ahead and check that out there. But the highlights are, we're running in a test bed where I don't have certs and stuff, so we're going to run it in insecure mode. And this is going to be the virtual IP address that we assign to our active node. The IP addresses for these nodes on the client network are 192.168.221.60.61 and .62 for nodes 0, 1, and 2 respectively. And then we're going to float this .69 address as our virtual IP address. So we'll write that out, and then we'll reload systemd just to read that new systemd unit in. And then that's basically the base of it. I'm going to go ahead and initialize the OSIS instance on one node, and I'm just going to arbitrarily choose limit 0 here using this command. And these are the same environment variables I set in the systemd unit file. There are other ways to manage these environment variables, and you can find that in the ownCloud documentation, but I'm just going to do it this way. Basically setting the same exact things I had set in the systemd unit. And we'll initialize that, which will create this configuration in the OSIS, Etsy OSIS directory we created earlier, but also give us a generated admin password, which I'll copy out so that we can log in later in the demo. With that initialized on one node, I can SCP it to the peers, and I'll just do that like this. And like this. Wrong password. Okay, and then with those configurations on all nodes, I'll change ownership to the to be owned by that service account user we created earlier. So that thing started up okay once we go to manage it with the cluster resource manager. And that is basically it for the OSIS side of things. So ownCloud is ready to be managed by DRBD Reactor. And the last thing we really have to do is configure DRBD Reactor to manage that service. So I will paste in the configuration again and then just kind of talk through it. So let me just write it out and then cat it. So what we've defined here in the ownCloud.toml, I guess it's important to note that DRBD Reactor configurations are written in TOML, so just follow the DRBD user's guide under the DRBD Reactor section for hints on how DRBD Reactor is configured, but also refer to the TOML syntax guide, probably on TOML's official website for more there. But we have a promoter section defined in this configuration that is set to promote on promote upon gaining a lock on this R0 resource. So whenever DRBD Reactor on a specific node is able to mount or is able to promote the R0 resource, meaning it's not already promoted on another node, we're going to start all these other services listed in here. These are just some systemd dependency settings that we set, and you can see the various options that you could set here instead in the DRBD Reactor Users Guide on limbit.com, but I'll skip over that for now and get to the important parts, which are mostly the start section. So these are the resources that will start once the DRBD R0 resource is promoted. And this is just the TOML multi-line syntax. So we're going to start with this triple quote, end with a triple quote. And we could add new lines anywhere in this single line here, and that's what that triple quote is, even though I'm not doing it. I just thought it was important to drop that there and mention it. So DRBD Reactor can use the OCF resource agent, so the Open Cluster Framework resource agents used by Pacemaker and similar cluster resource managers. And we're going to use the file system resource agent from that package to manage a resource we arbitrarily named FSOSIS. But the parameters we've set here are the important parts. So the device we're mounting is the DRBD device that we're replicating between the nodes, and we're mounting it at that data mount point that we created earlier. The FS we configured there was XFS, and we're going to say run an FS check no. So it's not going to ever try to run an FS check on mount and therefore like slow down a failover. And after that successfully starts, so the file system's mounted, then we're going to tell Reactor to start the OSIS service, so start your ownCloud service via that systemd unit we created earlier. And once that's started successfully, we'll use the OCF resource agent IPadder2 to start the OSIS VIP resource with the following parameters. So an IP of 192.168.221.69, which is that the OSIS URL we defined in the OSIS settings earlier, with a net mask at 24, and we're just going to label it so that we know what that IP address is about later on once we forget that DRBD Reactor is managing it. And then we've set some DRBD specific settings here. So like on demote failure, we're going to force a reboot of the node. So these are just, this is a setting just to make sure that if anything is holding on to the DRBD device, causing it to fail to demote, we'll just reset that node to get it out of the way so that another node can take over services. So that's what that setting is about. And we're going to use the newer force secondary option for DRBD. So if it's, for whatever reason, stuck in a primary state, try to force it down into secondary. Just another kind of helper for getting a stuck service or a stuck DRBD resource out of the way so another node can take over. And then optionally, I've set this line just to show it to you in the demo, but we're setting preferred nodes, and these are preferred in order from left to right. So we're going to prefer limbit 0 as our primary, then 1, and then 2. And what this basically does is just kind of staggers the access attempts by these nodes so that limbit 0 will win if all DRBD Reactor services are started at the same time. Totally optional, and usually we recommend not setting a preference, but if you, for whatever reason, do have a preference, this is how you do it. So that's our configuration. Now we can start up DRBD Reactor and watch it start our services. So we created the configuration file after DRBD Reactor was started, so we're just going to simply restart DRBD Reactor to reread those configurations. And that should cause DRBD Reactor to start attempting the starting of services on one node. So we set the preference to limbit 0. We're going to check it out there, or expect to see it running there. ownCloud. And in a moment, we should see that it does start all these services. I'm going to kind of zoom in on one node here and watch it start those up. Actually, I think I need to, yep, I set the permissions at the wrong point, so I need to chown our directory again. So that's my bad, and I saw this earlier and I should have corrected it here, but let me handle this now. So just recursively chown the data directory to that service user account, and now we should see services are started. And we can go ahead and head back to our browser and accept this self-generated certificate and see the login for our ownCloud instance, and we'll put in the username and password that was output by our initialization command, and we see we're logged into a brand new ownCloud instance. From here, you can just start using ownCloud. I'll just upload some dummy files. I've got this silly image I've made earlier that I'll upload into here as just kind of a test file. It's an iconic kind of background with my grass pollen irritated eyes looking over this field, and I can. So I've uploaded that while we're primary on Limbit 0. I'll go back to my shell, and we'll fail this node, and we should see services failover. But let me try to give you a picture-in-picture so that you can kind of see what happens while we do that. Okay, so here we are back at our cluster. We'll run a status again just to see that we're running all our services on Limbit 0 right now. And I will go ahead and echo B to proc_sysrq, which essentially sends a hard reset to the node, forcing it to go down. And we should see Limbit 1 take over shortly. I'll just issue a watch there. We'll watch on both nodes just for good measure. And we see services are warming up, or they're started actually, sorry. Started on Limbit 1. I don't have watch supporting colors, so we can see we're running there, and I just refresh this page over here. Actually, you can't even, it's so quick. There we go. It's all our data is there, and yeah, we can browse around like nothing happened. We can actually fail this again, fail the new node same way, and I'll just like click around while that's happening. Yeah, that was very fast. So where are we running now? We're running back on Limbit 0, or must be. We are. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. We've configured an HA failover cluster for ownCloud using DRBD and DRBD Reactor. If you have any questions about this, or you would like to see more or more documentation on it, head over to limbit.com and reach out to us. We're always available for calls, questions, demonstrations, whatever you want to see. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.